Hey, I'm Mike Gilliam, and welcome to an all-new season of Let It Rip. We begin this season in the midst of a huge shakeup in New York politics. Governor Andrew Cuomo is out, forced to resign as a result of a sexual harassment scandal. Lieutenant Governor Kathy Hochul now assumes the role of governor. She's promised to set a different tone in Albany, and the political landscape is changing in the city too. Eric Adams won the Democratic mayoral primary, and in the heavily Democratic city, it appears he'll be the next mayor. We'll talk about those changes and the number of people of color who are now holding high-ranking offices in the city and state, and what it might mean going forward. This is Let It Rip. It's been a fast and furious last couple of months in New York politics. In addition to the changes in Albany and at City Hall, as the smoke clears, we now have a situation where people of color have taken the reins of power across the state. Andrea Stewart-Cousins presides over the state Senate. Carl Heastie presides over the state Assembly. Jumaane Williams is the city public advocate and poised to move to higher office. Letitia James is the state attorney general and has often been mentioned as a possible candidate for governor. And the makeup of the city council is changing. At least 29 Democratic incoming council members are women, many of them women of color. They vowed to make the next speaker a woman, possibly of color. So what does it all mean? Here to discuss political power in the state and its evolution, we have a great panel, including New York City Council member Mercedes Narcisse of Canarsie, CUNY political science professor Charles Tien, and former New York State Assemblyman Adam Clayton Powell IV. Welcome to all of you. Charles, let's start with you. What's your reaction to all of this?
The dislike between the previous governor, or the outgoing governor, right, Governor Cuomo, and our current mayor Bill de Blasio was no secret, and so I think that the relationship can only improve. Doesn't seem like it can get any worse, and so that might mean more favorable funding. For I'm hoping, right, CUNY, where we're at, more favorable funding for the MTA, and so hopefully quality of life in the city will improve because of the improved relationship.
Mm-hmm. Mercedes, how do you see it?
I feel strongly that having a new governor and for the mayor of city for the rest of his term to partner with, I don't know how much we can get from that short period of time, but it would make a big changes because people are looking for leadership, and having a fragmented group of leaders is not doing well for the city. So we need to have the collaboration. There's a lot of projects to work together. We have to see I mean, not all the time, but majority of time, if we have to be on the same page in order to move things forward.
Okay, so Adam, full disclosure, you worked on the Adams campaign, right?
Voluntarily.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
From the heart.
What do you expect now that it looks like he's going to be the mayor and assume that office and will be working with the new governor in Albany? What do you expect to see?
I really expect great things from Eric Adams. I know he's going to be a good mayor. I won't say he's going to be a great mayor because I think it's impossible to be a great mayor in New York City, just the forces that be with the media and all the pressures and all this, that, and the other. So, but he's going to be a good mayor. He's a solid guy. I've known Eric literally about going back to the 90s when he was a police officer, but he founded an organization called 100 Blacks in Law Enforcement Who Care. Mm-hmm. And I remember that's how he made a name for himself. And got into politics because he was out there with us protesting police brutality, police misconduct. As a cop, as a police officer, he was out there, I repeat, protesting with us any incidents of police misconduct or police brutality. And be honest with you, the brother's lucky to be alive. Mm-hmm. Having said that, that's what propelled him into a political career. He was elected to a state senate in 2006. I was in the assembly, so we served together. We've been friends a long time. I honestly felt that he was the best person for this job. I mean, his lifelong experiences have prepared him for this moment. And so he actually also called me. I told him, I'm with you. I told him a couple of years ago, but he actually called me in February I said, Adam, I want to meet with you. We met, and he said, I really want you to help. I said, I'm there, front and center. And it's just great to see that the voters of New York City, I believe, picked the right person.
Mercedes, Eric Adams ran a different sort of campaign. It wasn't about defunding the police or reallocating funds for the police department. And in fact, he talked about doing some of the things that previous administrations had done to try to reduce crime. How do you see his approach to crime, and does it mesh with what you think should be done in the city?
For me, I think is an increase in making sure that we, in our school building, making sure that our youth have mental health checkup on a regular basis, like physical, because a lot of underlying going tied up with crime and different things that happening in our community that we need to address first before we said putting more police. Policing is not going to solve our problem. We need to increase in terms of organization that come in the community to address those issues. And we need to partner more in trying to solve problem, not putting more policing in our community.
Adam, do you expect that he would go back to stop and frisk and that sort of
No,
thing?
no. Let's be clear about this. Eric Adams testified in federal court against the use of stop and frisk. In fact, the judge used his testimony, former Captain Eric Adams, the judge used his testimony in the decision to eliminate stop and frisk. So, but this whole thing about defund the police, it's it's a concept, but I got to tell you, it's a concept that will not survive in New York City. We cannot live without police. I mean, it's laughable.
Charles, Eric Adams' win in the Democratic primary, much has been made about this crime issue, and he in fact says his moderate approach is what carried the day. Do you believe that that is in fact really what carried the day for him?
I think polls did show that crime or law and order, right, were important issues that the voters, even the Democratic primary voters, were concerned about. And that was the major issue that he ran on. And I think that given the increases in crime that the city has seen over the last year, I think it did resonate with the Democratic primary voters, and it probably did make quite a difference in his eventual victory.
Mm-hmm. The pandemic dominates. How do you think this will all bode for our communities when it comes to healthcare? You've been a nurse for 30 years, council member-elect. What do you think?
Is creating access. This pandemic has highlighted the problems that have been in our community. And one of the areas is healthcare access. During the primary, so many of our folks did not have access to primary care physician, and they end up in the ER and overload the ER, and we lost a lot of lives. So now we have to look at to focus on preventive care and then make sure that we have whatever it takes, whatever the supplies, whatever that we need to address any pandemic, any future pandemic. We're not alone. We're dealing in a global world where everybody communicating in a matter of seconds from one side to the next. So we have to be sensitive with all that and making sure that we have structure in place. So if anything arises, so we do better, because we have learned, myself personally, I've learned from this pandemic, because I have to be out there and seeing the folks suffering and trying to save as many lives as possible, deliver medication in the house and trying to get prescription and trying to deal with the seniors. It's not an easy process, but we can do it together. We have so many medical professionals in our community, yet we don't have no hospital. We don't have any community health center. So we have NASHA houses. We can put their space. We can actually put centers right in the space where we have already. We have in the school building. We can make it more accessible, teaching, educating. I do believe, as a nurse for 30 years, I believe in preventive care, more focus around preventive care, teaching.
Let me ask you this, though. Are you looking for something different, a different response from Albany now?
Yes, collaboratively, because we need to collaborate on issues that matter to our community. Having so many Black and brown leaders, I feel like we should get a better approach in dealing with things that like that have been that we've been suffering for decades in our community, in Black and brown communities. All the access, we're talking about housing access, healthcare access, education. We realized in the pandemic what happened to our children. We don't even have Wi-Fi. We don't have broadband. Those are all the infrastructure we need to have in place. So with Albany and the federal, we should combine together because we have so many representatives that can really fight for our communities now.
Charles, we in the city, though, should we be concerned about having a governor now from Western New York State as opposed to someone from downstate?
I'm not sure if concerned is the right word, but given that Governor Cuomo was from the suburbs here, and I'm not certain that how New York City will be treated will be any worse than it has been treated for the last 8 to 10 years. The incoming governor Hochul, has been known to, I think, be a savvy politician. She's running for re-election. She knows that New York City has a lot of votes to deliver. In the past, she's been known to change positions as her job has changed, and so. You could argue that that's a good trait to have in an elected politician, right? You're supposed to be representing the people on many issues, and if the people you're representing changes, then you should think very hard about changing as well. And so I think we should go in with an open mind in terms of how well Hochul will be treating the city, and I'm hopeful that policies can be implemented that can help us, get out of this pandemic. I don't know if anybody can do it, and I don't know if it can be done, but I think in this situation, change is good.
Yeah, I would agree with that. One of the things she has said is that she will look at every issue with an open mind. We're going to talk a little bit more about that and what it should mean for our communities and holding our elected officials accountable after a short break. I'm Mike Gilliam. This is Let It Rip.
You're watching CUNY TV, the City University of New York.
Welcome back to Let It Rip. I'm Mike Gilliam. As the political dust settles across the city and state, people of color are in a much different political reality than ever before. They hold a lot more power. So what needs to happen to make sure the needs of communities are met now that the votes have been cast? We're continuing our conversation with new City Council member Mercedes Narcisse of Canarsie, CUNY political science professor Charles Tien, and former New York State Assemblyman Adam Clayton Powell. Professor, how do we make sure as voters that we get what we voted for?
That's a great question, right? That's a great question. And it's something that is very hard to ensure, because that means we, the voters, have some responsibilities, and those responsibilities are to remain engaged with what's going on, right? To educate ourselves, and then to express our preferences to our elected leaders. So our elected leaders have to know what our preferences are. So that means communicating with them in multiple ways, whether that be through social media, whether that be through emails or calls to the offices of our elected leaders. But we have to let them know that we are watching and will act on what they are doing in their term of office. And so we have to turn out in large numbers. We have to register, and we have to communicate. And I'm putting a lot on the voters, and right on the other side of the equation, there's a lot of responsibility of our elected leaders to remain in contact and engage with the communities that they are representing. American politics is too heavily influenced by money, I believe, unfortunately. And so politicians spend too much time chasing dollars rather than focusing on how best to legislate to improve quality of life for all of us. But that's just right, the way that our electoral system is set up at this time, and until the rules change and until we get get the influence of money reduced in our system, we, the voters, have to do a better job at holding our elected representatives accountable.
Adam, we now have a governor from Western New York. What needs to happen to make sure that we get what we need here downstate?
Certainly, I'd like to see the glass half full, and I certainly hope that she will endear herself to New York City people and coming and give us the proper respect. Having said that, she is an accidental governor, as unfortunately Governor David Paterson used to be called. I don't hear that about Kathy Hochul, and it's bothersome. It's that white privilege that, again, when David became governor, he was the accidental governor.
Mhm.
I don't hear that being said about Kathy Hochul. So having said that, she does give us the respect, and her policies are in tune with progressive policies. Then I think she's going to be tough to beat. People are treating this like it's an open seat next year. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Everybody's jumping in to run for governor. You know what I mean? Next year. I wouldn't take her so lightly. I think she's going to be, if she does the right thing, she's going to be tough to beat. This is not an open seat. She will be running for re-election.
Oh yeah, possession's a tough thing to overcome.
No, not only that, but again, if she does the right thing, she's going to be tough to beat. They love her upstate, that's for sure. And she comes from Buffalo. She has a long history up there. And I even hear from my friends, people of color, leaders up in the Western New York area. Yeah, they love her. They're fine with her.
In Albany, you served in the assembly.
Yes.
The assembly said they were going to drop the impeachment after Governor Cuomo said that he would step aside.
Yes.
They've kind of gone back on that now after getting a lot of backlash, and say they will continue the investigation. What's your reaction to that?
Listen, the governor resigned. That's the end of that. As far as I'm concerned, and a lot of legal analysts have also agreed, the impeachment is a process whereby you remove a governor, or you remove an individual from their office. If the guy's no longer in office, I just don't see the point.
Mercedes, should they continue the investigation?
Actually, there's a lot of underlying things, a lot of things that are opaque, not clear. So if the body choose to do further investigation according to what they already have in front of them, that's on them, because I'm not part of it. So I don't know all the detail, but sometimes you may think about something because you're on the outside, but in the inside. So I count on them to do the right thing. And so far, the speaker spoke and said, this is what it is. And if it's gonna be that, so I can go around and say what I believe, what I think, but I don't have all the evidence in front of me for now.
By the way, let me just add,
Go ahead.
the fact that if he's not impeached, he can run again. If he runs again, I mean, we live in a democracy. If he runs again, the people can vote him in, or the people can vote against him. People vote him in, people vote him out. So it is what it is. I can live with that.
Mhm.
It's a democracy. Even if the impeachment does not proceed, the governor could still be, as a former governor, he could still be held, criminal liability, civil liability. None of that goes away. So, the investigations can still move forward, either in a criminal way or in a civil matter.
Mercedes, usually it's the constituents voting for a candidate, and there are certain things that they want of that candidate. Let's go the other way with that, though. Now that you have one elected office, what do you want to see from your constituents?
To be more engaged, which I've been engaged in Tilly Town Hall. It's educating the voters. Now I want them to respond more when there's a meeting, town hall, to get on it. And I've been very successful. I can say I can get 10,000 people in, and I realize the voters are responding to that. They want to know. And one of the promises that I made to keep the tele town hall going and educating what's going on. And before any legislation, I want to hear their input, and I promise to continue tele town hall. Communication is the best tool that we have, the tools that we can use to understand each other, to know where we're going. And it's a matter of trust, knowing that I'm not hiding anything. Transparency is very important because we have been burned and hurt. We need to reinstate that in politics.
Yeah, I could see where that would be very important to now have people who you know from your community representing you. Council member-elect, when you go to the city council, are there things from your area that you plan to make priorities?
Oh, most definitely. We know we're dealing with crime. We talk about crime. And one of the things that I keep saying, crime issue does not occur in silo. Is a culmination of different issues. So now we're talking about housing issues. NYCHA have been neglected for decades. The repair, if you want young folks to perform well, even they go to school, when they come home to seeing all the housing falling apart, we need to fix that. We need to make sure that NYCHA houses has priority in our term in government, because those are people living in the NYCHA houses. We need to clean that. We need to repair. We need to make sure there's no more lead that functioning, because lead painting, we know is damaging. As a nurse for over 30 years, I can tell you that's a fact. We need to make sure that we have extended hours of after school program for our children so they don't wander on the streets. We need sports. Sports is a big engagement for our youth, and we need to do that more. Those are the things I'm looking for. I'm anxious to make sure that we get our fair share. And the dynamic, we have a shifted paradigm in government now that the youth can look back and say, okay, I have people that my same color that can do things, and now I can do better for myself. I think it's a sense of encouragement, is an increase in empathy, increase in sensitivity, increase in understanding. And as so many women going in, we have the holistic approach. We're gonna see things as a whole picture, not half of the picture. Not saying anything to the men, but I'm saying women, we have a holistic approach.
Okay, I was gonna say. One of the things there, you had a lot to unpack there. Charles, I mentioned the fact that there are so many people of color who have now assumed these various roles across the city and state. What do you think that shift is going to mean as far as local politics and state politics are concerned?
I think having more people of color in positions of power is extremely important. I don't think we can predict exactly how it will change, but what I do believe is that the communities of color in our city will get better representation. And so, the issue might not be that the position of the new representative is necessarily different on all of the stated policies that are out there in terms of healthcare or housing. But it will be everything that leads up, I think, to the final vote that you'll see the difference. So what will be discussed, I think, could potentially be different because people who have grown up with close ties to these communities of color, who've had different experiences, life experiences, those life experiences will inform not only their decisions, but what things that they bring up in debate and maybe even new policy proposals. So I think you will see improved representation substantively, and I also think that you may see a greater sense of trust in government by voters in these communities. So voters who see representatives that look like them tend to have greater satisfaction with their quality of representation.
And that's going to have to do it. We had a great conversation about the new politics of New York State and the city. I want to thank our guests, new City Council member Mercedes Narcisse of Canarsie, CUNY political science professor Charles Tien, and former New York State Assemblyman Adam Clayton Powell. Thank you all. We're going to take a short break, and I'll be back with some final thoughts. I'm Mike Gilliam, and this is Let It Rip.
You're watching CUNY TV, the City University of New York.
Welcome back. I'm Mike Gilliam, and this is Let It Rip. With all of the changes in leadership in the city and state and the representation of people of color throughout the ranks, it's easy to understand why many would expect better, more responsive government. I hope that's what we get. But one need only to look at the problems in Washington to know that nothing is guaranteed. Or remember when Democrats thought they were in the driver's seat in Albany, only to have hopes dashed when a group of rogue Democratic lawmakers split away and joined Republicans, taking with them the hard-fought-for majority. Things are looking up, but it'll be very important to let our lawmakers know what we need and why, and to hold them accountable. They should know the issues that we care about. And as long as we stay persistent, the changing climate in Albany and the city should bode well for all of us. I'm Mike Gilliam. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Let It Rip.